Hello, this is Austin Amoro, and I intend today to dwell on a subject that I have researched for so long. I call it cure to addiction. You know, I have researched addiction for a long time now. Many people can be addicted to several things. People can be addicted to food, sex, drugs, sleep, and so on. The same thing you do to get addicted to drugs is the same thing you do to get addicted to food, and that applies to sex as well, and that applies to sleep. Even students find themselves stranded because they are addicted to kind of sleep. They love sleep so much that they have to do it. Now, I've spent a long time researching addiction and its cures, and I realize its cures cannot be found in the shores of psychology alone, and its cures cannot be found in the shores of therapy alone, or psychotherapy, the way they call it. Now, first of all, let's ask ourselves, what is addiction? Addiction is nothing but routine turned into habit that has grown into obsession. Now, I come again. Like I said, addiction is nothing but routine turned habit that has grown into obsession. Now, when you have a routine and that routine become a habit, and now it become an obsession, that is what we call addiction. Then you find it very, very difficult to break away from it. Whatever has a beginning, I believe you already know, will surely have an end. If addiction is started at all, it can be managed, or all can be terminated. Now, we have to manage it. We should learn how to manage it. Now, everything starts from a thought. Now, addiction, you grow addiction. Whatsoever you are addicted to did not just happen. You consciously or unconsciously grew it. It was a seed that you have watered to a point that it become irresistible. You've watered it. You are the one that applied water to it. You are the one that allowed the seed to grow. It takes time for you to perfect a routine, which will set and become a habit. Now, if I have a routine of using drugs, now I get used to it. It takes time. At first I might not love it, but later I start to feel the taste, then I get to love it. Now it takes time to get addicted to anything. It takes a lot of time. Now, first of all, what we should know about addiction is that it is grown and it takes time. We should know this about addiction. It also takes time to get out of it. Now, if you realize that it takes time to get in, you should realize it to take time to get out. Now, the time it takes to get in might be shorter than the time it will take you to get out. But first, you must realize this above everything else. It is your mindset that counts. It is your mindset that matters here. All you need is time. You daily climb out of it. You need daily commitment to climb out of any addiction. Now, if I fight an addiction and I overcome it today, let's say it's addiction of drugs. I didn't take the drugs today. Now, it is a daily habit, like I said, a daily commitment. That's what you need. Now, if I fight over it today, it doesn't mean I can overcome it tomorrow. That means I need to fight over it tomorrow as well. And if I have to fight over it tomorrow, I need to fight over it next tomorrow. I need to fight over it next week. I need to fight over it next month. But get this, when you deal with it today, it will be easier to deal with it tomorrow. To be easier to deal with it next week. It will be far, far easier to deal with it next month because you dealt with it today. That means when it comes to addiction, all you have is the day. Now, I said if it is an habit and if it was started at all, then it can be managed to termination. We can manage it to termination. Now, how do you do that? I call it deal with it. To cure an addiction, you need to do 4 things. You need to deal with it with 4 different ways. Now, addiction, like I said, it was a thought that grown into an action that became a daily routine, and a daily routine that became a habit that became an obsession. So what do you do to an obsession? What do you do to an addiction? You have to cut it. It will grow again when you cut it. Now, so what do you do to it? If I cut it like a tree, it is going to grow again. Like the book of Job in the Bible said, Job chapter 14, verse 6 to 9. He said, at the scent of water, when a tree is cut down, the tree yet have hope, because at the scent of water, that tree is going to bulb. It's going to start to grow because water will be applied. Now, if I decide to cut my habit of smoking cigarette, cut my habit of attachment to sex, or attachment to one particular food, or attachment to drugs, or attachment to sleep, if I decide to cut it off, now I can manage it as long as there is no water. What I mean by water is that as long as there is no a reminder of the thought that brought about the addiction in the first place. Let's say it is cigarette. Now I can manage the cigarette as long as I'm not with my friends, as long as I'm not in the same condition that brought me into it in the first place. But if I need it out permanently, I should uproot it. I should uproot it. Now, if I uproot it, does that save me a lot of stress? Yes, it's going to save me a lot of stress, but that is not all. Number two thing is that you need to replace it. What you uproot, there is a space in there. So if you must succeed, you need to replace what you uprooted. That means if I uprooted the habit, if I overcame the habit of smoking today, I need to replace it with something. What I used to do at the time, the time of smoking, the time I used to smoke, I need to replace it with something more enjoyable. I need to replace it. What was uprooted must be replaced. If I used to have fun or sex with a particular person or just anybody at all, I need to replace it with something better. I need to replace it with a picture of the future. I need to replace it with a promise. I need to replace it with something. I need to replace it with a game, with a play, anything. I need to replace it. But whatever you are using to replace what you uprooted must be better than what you uprooted. If it was cigarette, what am I replacing a cigarette with? That replacement might be temporary, but you need to replace it. You need to replace it. Now the replacement is not all. When you uproot, you replace, but that is not all. You need to learn how to see better. Remove the veil from the temple. Now, the reason why you were addicted in the first place, you must find out why you were addicted. Find the reason, because when you find the reason, then you can then take off the veil. When you find the reason, the only thing you need to do after finding the reason is to give yourself a better reason why you should cut off the addiction, or rather uproot it. In other words, number one, you uproot it. Number two, you replace it. Number three, you see better.